Welcome back. Now, the French Socialist Party of the outgoing President François Hollande has chosen the former Education Minister Benoit Hamon as his candidate for the upcoming presidential election. He's a 49-year-old former Education Minister whose key economic policies include a working week of just 32 hours. Also, a tax on robots, which would fund a basic income of about $800 for all French citizens. He's comfortably beat former Prime Minister Manuel Valls. And when the presidential election happens in April, he'll be fighting off the pro-business former Socialist Economy Minister Emmanuel Macron, the centre-right Republicans François Fillon, who wants to cut public spending, and the leader of the far-right Front National, Marine Le Pen, who wants to exit the European single currency. Well, with me now for more insight into the political situation in France is Nabila Ramdani, and welcome to today's programme. How surprised are you in terms of him emerging as the victor for the Socialist Party?
Well, effectively, what the Socialist primary has revealed is a significant swing to the left, with Benoit Hamon being elected as the party's candidate for the forthcoming presidential election in April and May. And let's not forget that François Hollande himself had come into power on a radical agenda himself. He supported anti-big business policies. He introduced high tax for the super rich against all advice. He kept hold of the 35-hour week, and he effectively undid Sarkozy's policy on retirement, bringing the age of retirement down. And these very policies were actually made him very unpopular with the French voters in general. His current popularity rate is only 4%.
Well, that's what I was going to come on to asking, which is, given what he's inheriting, I mean, what chance of him actually ultimately winning?
Well, I think the reason why we have an even more radical left-wing candidate coming in is because towards the end of his presidency, Hollande has tried to veer to the right, to introduce more business-friendly policies through his finance minister, Emmanuel Macron, more money man, effectively, into his government. And he tried to revive what was essentially a failing French economy. And that made him hugely unpopular with the left. And we effectively back to square one now with François Hamon, who wants to bring the 35-hour week to 32, introduced, as you said, taxes on robots, the kind of Brave New World policies to avoid machines taking over from human beings, and a universal income for 18 to 25 years old.
And what is your assessment of the key issues at play for the French electorate during this election?
I think it's very much the economy that's very clear. In fact, the entire François Hollande presidency has been marked and indeed marred by very violent, often, protests against labour laws in an attempt to reform the country. This was the idea also in the Hollande presidency by bringing in Manuel Valls as the Prime Minister in an attempt to revive the economy, but Manuel Valls has proved to be more of a law and order man rather than somebody who had a grip on the economy.
Two quick final questions. First of all, the extremism we've seen in France. The left have hardly been at the forefront in trying to push that back, have they?
Indeed, I think they have failed miserably in tackling extremism through mainly Manuel Valls, who introduced identity politics and indeed stigmatized segments of the French population by introducing anti-Muslim legislations like bans on veils and restrictions on the sale of halal meat, but also by stigmatizing the Roma population, saying they couldn't integrate in France and hence had to be deported to other European countries, and of course they are EU citizens.
Final quick question. We saw Theresa May there in Washington trying to underscore that special relationship. When you look at the relationship between France and the new president, I mean, that's unlikely to get any better, is it?
No, it's not. And effectively, Donald Trump had a very brief and pretty inconsequential telephone conversation on Saturday with François Hollande. He knows that François Hollande will be out in a few months' time. Trump made it clear that he doesn't like France very much, and he wrongly said that there were no-go areas. And frankly speaking, there is no comparison between his relationship to France and the current love-in relationship he's having with May, dare I say.
And that's unlikely to change. Nabila, thank you so much for coming in and giving us that assessment.